What to do with a woman who hurts you? Imagine this, the woman who once held your heart, the one who effortlessly pulled away, leaving you questioning everything. She's watching you, right now. Her silence isn't disinterest, it's a carefully constructed trap. She expects you to chase, to crumble, to prove her power. But what if I told you that her silence is about to become her greatest fear? What if the very game she's playing is about to become her undoing? This isn't a theory, it's a blueprint, a precise psychological strategy to not just survive her absence, but to transform it into your ultimate comeback. Today, you're not just learning to move on, you're learning to become a ghost, a powerful, enigmatic force that she can't touch, can't control, and will relentlessly chase, only to find the man she knew is gone. Forever. This isn't about revenge, it's about reclaiming your power, your dignity, and forging a new, untouchable version of yourself. Are you ready to flip the script so hard she'll question every decision she ever made about you? Then sit back, lock in, and prepare to become the man she thought she had, only to realize she lost him the moment she stopped caring. Welcome back to the channel, where we uncover the raw truths about human connection and self-mastery. If you've ever felt trapped in the endless cycle of chasing validation, today's video is your liberation. We're about to explore the art of controlled silence, not as a tactic, but as a profound act of self-redefinition. Before we journey into this transformative shift, I urge you, if this content resonates, if you feel that spark of recognition, hit that subscribe button. Join our legion of men committed to building lives of undeniable value and unwavering self-respect. Let the world know you're here to redefine your worth, not chase it. Every single day across countless cities and towns, a silent epidemic unfolds. Millions of individuals, often men, find themselves ensnared in an agonizing loop. Someone they deeply care about, someone whose presence once felt like sunshine, begins to recede. A gradual, almost imperceptible shift. Replies become delayed, interactions grow colder, a palpable distance emerges, and suddenly the world seems to tilt on its axis. They find themselves compulsively checking their phone, a phantom vibration haunting their pocket. Every past conversation is meticulously replayed, every word, every pause, every silence dissected under a microscopic lens. They're searching for clues, for errors, for a way back to the warmth that vanished. And with each anxious thought, each desperate action, they do exactly what is implicitly expected of them. They react, they chase. This is the silent, pervasive problem at the heart of so many modern relationships. They are, in essence, an intricate dance of power dynamics, often unspoken, yet profoundly influential. The very instant you allow yourself to react, to let her perceived indifference dictate your emotional state, you relinquish a crucial piece of your control. The moment you begin to chase, to pursue her attention as if it were a scarce commodity, you inadvertently diminish your own inherent value. And the second you allow someone to witness the profound impact their absence has on your well-being, you effectively hand them every single shred of leverage. This fundamental truth is understood by the most powerful individuals in the world, whether their arena is the cutthroat world of business, the complex tapestry of relationships, or the grand stage of life itself. They never react impulsively. Instead, they observe with calm precision. They adapt with strategic foresight. And when someone dares to engage them in a game of emotional manipulation, they execute the single most transformative maneuver. They embrace silence. Profound, strategic, unyielding silence. This is the cornerstone of what we are dissecting today. Number 1, she expects you to react. Let's paint a vivid picture. Consider Alex, a 28-year-old software engineer whose world once revolved around weekly date nights and a steady stream of good morning texts from a woman named Maya. But lately, Maya has become a ghost of her former self. The morning texts have evaporated. When Alex suggests making plans, she's perpetually swamped or just too busy. Yet an unsettling pattern emerges. She's consistently viewing his Instagram stories, often the first to do so. She's posting carefully curated photos of herself out with friends, looking radiant, undeniably enjoying life. These aren't random occurrences. They are deliberate breadcrumbs, subtle signals designed to ensure Alex notices her vibrant existence. She is, in essence, holding her breath. She's expecting a specific response from him. She's patiently waiting for that predictable reaction, that telltale crack in his composure, that fleeting lapse in his self-control. The precise moment Alex, even for a split second, buckles under the pressure and sends a text asking, "Is everything okay?" or "What's wrong?" That is the moment she achieves her objective. That is her victory. Because the instant Alex reacts, the instant he breaks his silence, she receives undeniable confirmation. She is still firmly in control. She knows, with absolute certainty, that she hasn't lost him. And this chilling realization grants her tacit permission to continue her emotional game, to continue testing the boundaries of his tolerance, to gauge precisely how much of her calculated absence he will endure before he finally shatters. The vast majority of men, tragically, succumb to this pressure. They find themselves incessantly checking their phones, the screen becoming a tormenting mirror of their anxiety, desperately awaiting a text that may never arrive. They obsessively replay the last conversation, meticulously scrutinizing every word, every pause, every gesture, desperately searching for the elusive point where they supposedly messed up. A wave of panic washes over them. An irrational fear that if they don't act immediately, she will vanish from their life forever. So, they initiate contact first. They send multiple texts, a barrage of digital pleas. They inquire about her well-being, even when it's clearly a veiled attempt to re-engage. They apologize for perceived transgressions they didn't even commit, all in a desperate bid to mend a rift they didn't create. Here's the brutal truth. She doesn't respect this behavior. In fact, she anticipates it, and when she witnesses it, the last vestiges of her interest simply evaporate. A woman, by and large, only engages in these emotional games with a man she hasn't fully committed to, a man she is still actively evaluating, a man for whom her respect is not yet absolute. She needs to observe if he is the kind of man whose sense of self-worth is intrinsically linked to her validation, a man who needs her attention to feel complete. And the very second he demonstrates that he does, that it is indeed his emotional lifeline, the game is over. In fact, now she isn't just pulling back, she is actively retreating, running in the opposite direction. Because Alex, in his desperate reaction, just communicated in the clearest possible terms that her attention is his lifeblood, that without it, he would emotionally disintegrate. This is a fundamental principle. Women are not drawn to men who emotionally collapse. They are fundamentally drawn to men who project an aura of self-sufficiency, men who convey, through their actions and their very presence, that they would remain whole, regardless of whether she chooses to stay or depart. Maya, in her initial assessment, might have believed she had Alex completely figured out. She might have convinced herself she'd seen this predictable scenario play out countless times before. She might have fully expected him to react, to valiantly attempt to prove his worth, to desperately try and reel her back into his orbit. But when that predictable reaction fails to materialize, when he stubbornly refuses to react, when he retreats into an impenetrable silence, when he subtly but powerfully demonstrates that her absence carries absolutely no weight in his world, that is precisely when a profound internal shift begins for her. And that insidious feeling, that is doubt. Doubt, in its purest form, is the corrosive agent that erodes her unshakable confidence. Doubt is the catalyst that compels her to reevaluate every single assumption she held about Alex. Doubt is the unsettling whisper that forces her to question, did I fundamentally misjudge him? Is he, against all my expectations, actually moving on with his life? Did I just foolishly let go of a man who genuinely possessed significant value? And that gnawing doubt, that self-inflicted doubt, is the magnetic force that, ironically, begins to pull her back. However, here lies a brutal, often misunderstood reality for most men. By the time this stark realization dawns upon her, by the time the tendrils of regret truly begin to intertwine, it is, in most cases, irrevocably too late, because the man she was so casually testing is no longer present. That previous iteration of him, the one who would have mindlessly chased, the one who would have predictably crumbled under the crushing weight of her strategic silence, that man has ceased to exist. In his place, a new, formidable entity has emerged. Alex has, through his unwavering silence, become the one terrifying entity she fundamentally fears the most. A man she cannot, under any circumstances, control. Number 2, your silence breaks her control. Silence in its rawest form is a terrifying force. This inherent fear of stillness is precisely why so many individuals struggle with solitude, with the profound quiet of being truly alone. It is the unspoken reason for the ubiquitous presence of social media, the constant stream of notifications, the endless scroll. It is why people actively immerse themselves in a cacophony of distractions, anything to avoid the uncomfortable introspection that prolonged silence inevitably demands. They do this to avoid confronting themselves, their thoughts, their deepest anxieties. When you, consciously and strategically, choose to embrace silence, you are, in essence, forcing her to confront that very same uncomfortable reality. She fully expected you to chase her. She fully expected you to actively validate her worth, to continuously provide reassurance of your interest. She fully expected you to remain in a perpetual state of proving your value to her. But now the tables have dramatically turned. Now, she's the one compulsively checking her phone far more frequently than you ever did. She's meticulously scanning for any subtle indicator, any fleeting sign that you might still harbor feelings for her. She's scrolling through your old text messages, replaying the last conversation, desperately attempting to pinpoint the exact moment she lost her dominant grip on your emotions. She might, with calculated performativity, attempt to project an image of utter indifference. She might upload a picture featuring another man, conspicuously go out with her social circle, ensuring that her carefully curated best life is prominently displayed for your supposed observation. But deep within, beneath the layers of feigned nonchalance, she is waiting. She is waiting with bated breath to see if her manipulations have yielded the desired outcome. She is waiting to ascertain if she still possesses that potent, almost irresistible emotional pull over you. But when that expected notification never materializes, when you steadfastly refuse to react, when you make no discernible effort to reel her back into your orbit, that is precisely when the cold tendrils of panic begin to constrict around her. Because now she is the one who feels utterly powerless, experiencing the very same disquietude you once endured. The same way you used to anxiously await her reply, she is now, in a cruel twist of irony, waiting for yours. The same way you used to feel that agonizing tension when she deliberately prolonged her response, she is now experiencing that exact same unsettling sensation. The same way you used to wonder with a pang of dread if she was gradually losing interest, she is now gripped by the harrowing question of whether you have irrevocably moved on. And that suffocating fear, that raw, undeniable fear, is the powerful catalyst that ultimately compels her to return. However, here is precisely where the vast majority of men commit a critical error. She will eventually send a text. It will be something innocuous, something deliberately casual, something calculatedly simple. Merely a probe, a test to see if you will eagerly take the bait. She will not, under any circumstances, explicitly state that she misses you. She will not admit, with any semblance of humility, that she was in the wrong. She will not offer an apology. Instead, she will dispatch something deliberately vague, something undeniably safe. "Hey, hope you're doing good. How have you been?" This, my friends, is the insidious test that most men catastrophically fail. They behold the incoming text, and a surge of immediate, almost uncontrollable elation washes over them. They instantly conclude, "This is it. This is the breakthrough. This is the undeniable moment she finally realized her profound mistake." They respond within mere seconds, a rapid-fire volley of eagerness. They zealously attempt to rekindle the dormant conversation. They mistakenly believe they have emerged victorious. But the very instant she registers that lightning-fast reply, she gleans a crucial, empowering insight. She still exerts a powerful hold over you, and just as swiftly and mysteriously as she initially vanished, she will recede once more. Because, let's be unequivocally clear, she was never truly returning for you. She was returning for the fragile affirmation of her own ego. She simply needed the undeniable confirmation that you were, indeed, still patiently waiting in the wings. That was the entirety of her objective. And now that she possesses that vital piece of information, now that she has reinforced her perceived control, she no longer feels any compelling need to engage in further conversation with you. This, then, explains why the most profoundly potent response in such a scenario is, ironically, no response at all. If her desire to genuinely return is authentic and deeply felt, she will, without question, exert the necessary effort. She will not simply dispatch a lazy, low-effort text message. She will articulate with crystal clarity that she genuinely regrets the profound loss of your presence. But until that level of undeniable effort is demonstrated, your unwavering silence remains your most formidable weapon. Because silence, fundamentally, is the potent alchemist that transmutes certainty into gnawing doubt. And doubt, in turn, is the irresistible magnet that compels her to chase. Yet, here lies the truly exquisite irony. By the time she finally reaches a point where she is genuinely prepared to chase you, you, in your newfound strength, will have already profoundly moved on. Because now, you no longer harbor any desperate need for her validation. You have meticulously reconstructed your life, entirely independent of her presence. You have diligently focused on your own growth and aspirations. You have forged an indomitable mindset, cultivated a significantly higher sense of self-worth, and attained a profound level of intrinsic confidence that is no longer, in any conceivable way, contingent upon her presence or approval. And by the time she finally comprehends the magnitude of what she carelessly relinquished, by the time she is genuinely ready to undertake actions she adamantly refused to perform previously, by the time she earnestly desires to prove her worth to you, she will find herself irrevocably too late. Because now, in a powerful reversal of roles, she is the one futilely chasing a ghost. Number 3, she will start to doubt herself. Let's imagine our subject is Chloe, a vibrant woman who, until recently, lived with the comforting certainty that she possessed an infinite supply of time. She genuinely believed that you, a man named Mark, who had consistently demonstrated unwavering patience, would perpetually remain in her orbit, always waiting, always hoping, forever lingering on the periphery of her attention, ready to spring into action at the slightest, most ephemeral signal that she might still harbor a shred of interest. She had meticulously constructed a narrative within her own mind, a firm conviction that regardless of her actions, no matter how long she chose to ignore you, no matter the myriad tests she orchestrated, you would, with predictable certainty, remain steadfastly present. But now, that once comforting silence has become a deafening roar. A subtle, yet profound, internal shift begins to occur within her. Initially, it's a small, almost imperceptible creeping doubt, a whisper that's barely audible, but it possesses an insidious, relentless growth. It commences as a simple, almost innocent thought. Why hasn't he reached out? A faint flicker of curiosity. Then, with increasing intensity, it evolves into, has he actually moved on? And that initial flicker metamorphoses into a palpable, unsettling tension. This tension then escalates further, transforming into the disquieting question, Was I fundamentally mistaken about him? And that mounting tension culminates in something far more potent and terrifying. Fear. The chilling fear that she gravely miscalculated. The agonizing fear that she had assumed far too much. That her initial assessment was deeply flawed. The crippling fear that in her game of calculated indifference, she has irrevocably lost control. There is perhaps nothing more profoundly unsettling for a woman than the stark, cold realization that she might have carelessly allowed something genuinely valuable to slip through her fingers. Because, in her ingrained perception, men are, by their very nature, supposed to be predictable. Her default assumption is that if she deliberately withdraws, the natural, expected response is that you, the man, will intensify your pursuit, chase harder, double your efforts. She anticipates that you will actively fight for her attention, that you will engage in fervent pleas, that you will diligently strive to rectify whatever perceived wrong has occurred. But you, in your newfound resolve, did none of that. You maintained an unyielding silence. You completely and utterly removed your presence from her world. You presented her with something she genuinely never anticipated, the profound unknown. And the unknown in its rawest form is arguably the single most powerful psychological force in the human experience. Because when faced with uncertainty, the human mind cannot tolerate a void. It becomes utterly consumed by the quest for answers. It's the same deeply ingrained psychological mechanism that compels people to compulsively check their phones while anxiously awaiting a response. It's the identical reason why masterfully crafted cliffhangers in television series and films hold audiences spellbound, utterly hooked, and desperate for resolution. It's the very reason why individuals can become addictively drawn to the thrill of the chase. The human mind simply cannot, for an extended period, endure unanswered questions. And now the roles have dramatically reversed. She is the one frantically searching for answers. She begins to scrutinize your social media profiles, not merely once or twice, but with an obsessive, almost ritualistic fervor. She's meticulously checking to see if you're currently online. She's scanning for any subtle alteration in your online presence, new profile pictures, emerging connections, a palpable shift in your perceived energy. She might not actively like your posts, but rest assured she is diligently watching. She might not send you a text, but her mind is undoubtedly consumed with thoughts of you. And the longer your strategic silence persists, the deeper, more incisive, and more debilitating the blade of doubt cuts into the very fabric of her confidence. She inevitably turns to her trusted circle of friends, the very same confidants who confidently assured her, "He'll definitely come back." They always do. The very same ones who perhaps shared a laugh about how you were just another man who couldn't resist her undeniable allure. But now, even her closest allies are beginning to harbor their own unsettling questions. Because the longer you continue to maintain your calculated silence, the more undeniably self-evident it becomes. You simply do not need her anymore. And that stark realization, that undeniable truth, absolutely terrifies her. Because now, the delicate balance of power has fundamentally shifted. Now, she is the one grappling with profound self-doubt, and there is perhaps nothing that precipitates a woman's emotional spiral faster or more acutely than this insidious self-doubt. She begins to meticulously replay every single interaction, every conversation, every shared moment in her head, dissecting them with forensic precision, desperately searching for the elusive point where she went astray. The last text she sent, the final time you were in each other's presence, the concluding conversation you shared. It all begins to assume a starkly different significance in her re-evaluated perception. And the more she agonizes over these recollections, the more she starts to grasp a profound, unwelcome truth she had consistently refused to acknowledge. She took you entirely for granted. She arrogantly assumed she possessed an ironclad hold over you. She confidently presumed she could effortlessly return whenever her whim dictated. She mistakenly believed you were merely a carbon copy of every other man who had come before you, desperately hungering for her validation. But now, her once unshakable certainty has fractured. And this corrosive doubt doesn't remain confined within the private chambers of her mind. It inevitably spills over, manifesting in her outward actions. Suddenly, she begins to tentatively test the waters. She might not explicitly utter the words, "I miss you." Her formidable pride would never permit such a direct admission. But she will commence with subtle, almost imperceptible gestures, casting out delicate signals, meticulously searching for any minuscule indication that she still retains access to you. She might like an old photograph on your social media. She might send an innocuous, casual text message. She might even comment on something entirely random, seemingly unrelated. Perhaps, in a calculated act of accidental misdirection, she'll send a message ostensibly intended for someone else, purely to gauge your response, to see if you'll take the bait. And the weak man, the perpetually weak man, tragically, succumbs to this bait. He spots the small, tantalizing breadcrumb and pounces with eager desperation. He mistakenly convinces himself, "This is it. This is the undeniable moment she finally realizes she wants me back." And the very instant he reaches out, the precise second he offers her even the slightest, most fleeting indication that he is still patiently waiting, she, with practiced ease, pulls back once more. Because now, she possesses her definitive answer. She doesn't genuinely desire to return to you in a committed sense. She simply needed the ego-boosting confirmation that she still possessed the capacity to do so. She merely needed to unequivocally prove to herself that you were still comfortably within her grasp, that your feelings for her remained intact, that you were still a viable option for her amusement. And the very moment she receives this reaffirming confirmation, she, with a sense of fulfilled purpose, disappears again. Because it was never, ever truly about you. It was, from its inception, solely about her maintaining control. And this, precisely, is where the vast majority of men suffer their most profound losses. They permit the insidious tendrils of doubt to completely shatter their resolve. They erroneously mistake her fleeting curiosity for genuine, profound interest. They falsely assume that simply because she is actively observing your life, it automatically signifies her readiness to return. But observation is not active pursuit. A like on an old photo is not a heartfelt expression of regret. A casual text message is not an indication of deep, abiding value. A woman who genuinely, truly regrets the profound loss of your presence does not condescendingly toss out breadcrumbs. She manifests her regret overtly, unequivocally. She doesn't send a random non-committal, "Hey." She declares with heartfelt sincerity, "I made a profound mistake." She doesn't merely like your social media post. She explicitly communicates, "I miss you deeply." She doesn't passively wait for you to reply. She actively fights with every fiber of her being for your attention, just as you once fought for hers. And until that level of undeniable effort and sincerity is demonstrated, your unwavering silence remains your most formidable, empowering stance. Because silence, in its strategic application, is what perpetually keeps her questioning. And that relentless questioning is what inexorably drives her to chase. And what's even more profoundly significant than that very questioning is precisely what sets you utterly free. Because by the time she finally reaches the point where she is ready to admit her errors, by the time she has painstakingly mustered the courage to genuinely reach out and articulate the unvarnished truth, by the time she finally relinquishes the suffocating grip of her pride, you, in your evolved state, will have already profoundly moved on. Because throughout this entire drawn-out period, while she was consumed by her internal doubts, while she was frantically searching for answers, while she was locked in an arduous battle with her own mind, desperately trying to discern if she had made a catastrophic error, you were diligently building, you were relentlessly focusing on your own personal growth, you were consistently pushing your limits in the gym. You were tirelessly pursuing your most ambitious goals. You were, in every conceivable way, leveling up your entire existence. You were not idly sitting by, patiently waiting for her to condescendingly decide if you were worthy of her precious time. You had, through your intentional actions, already become utterly untouchable. And that, my friends, that is the single greatest regret she will ever experience. Not merely the loss of you, but the profound, heartbreaking loss of the elevated version of you she never even had the privilege to truly encounter. Number 4. When she tries to pull you back, she utterly despises this feeling. She detests the sensation of having demonstrably lost. She recoils from the realization that she fundamentally miscalculated, that she made a colossal error in judgment, that she allowed something genuinely valuable to effortlessly walk away from her life. Because in her meticulously constructed internal narrative, she firmly believed she was perpetually in control. She was, in her own mind, the unquestioned architect of how this entire dynamic would unfold. She harbored the unwavering conviction that she could effortlessly withdraw, strategically create distance, and you, the predictable male, would inevitably react. Her plan dictated that you would be the one frantically attempting to mend the breach, desperately striving to win her back, fervently trying to prove your continued interest. That, unequivocally, was her carefully laid strategy. But then something entirely unforeseen occurred, something she never, in her wildest calculations, anticipated. You, quite simply, disappeared, and that stark, inexplicable absence, that is what shakes her to her very core. That is what infiltrates her mind in a way no other stimulus possibly could. That is what meticulously cultivates an insidious, pervasive uncertainty. And uncertainty, for her, is the single most intolerable state of being, because uncertainty, in this context, implies a terrifying loss of clarity. It means she no longer possesses any firm understanding of where she truly stands with you. It means her once unshakable grip on your emotions has irrevocably loosened. It means she might have, against all her expectations, genuinely lost you. And that, emphatically, was never an element of her meticulously crafted plan. She had confidently assumed she possessed an abundance of time. She had confidently assumed she could casually test the waters, gauge your willingness to chase, maintain you in a state of lingering hope just long enough to confirm your continued presence. But the longer your strategic silence extends, the more acutely she begins to perceive the crushing weight of her own previous decisions. She starts to viscerally feel the profound absence of your attention, a void that grows with each passing moment. And what fundamentally happens when individuals perceive the irretrievable absence of something they had complacently believed they could always effortlessly reclaim? They panic. However, it is crucial to understand that she will not, under any circumstances, overtly vocalize this panic. She will not pick up the phone and candidly admit her profound regret. She will not dispatch a lengthy, emotionally charged message, effusively apologizing for the manner in which she treated you. Such actions would necessitate a complete capitulation of control. They would demand an admission of her undeniable defeat. Instead, she will, with calculated precision, test you. Because in her ingrained mindset, she desperately needs to ascertain one singular truth. Do you still, at your core, care? This, then, is the genesis of the initial test. It is exquisitely subtle. Perhaps a woman named Sarah, having observed your prolonged silence, watches your Instagram stories once more. Perhaps she casually likes an old photograph of yours. Perhaps she dispatches a minuscule, deliberately vague, undeniably safe text message. Hey, hope you're doing well. Just saw something that reminded me of you. It is nothing direct. It is nothing overtly obvious. But it is unequivocally a test. She yearns to observe your reaction. She yearns to confirm if you remain emotionally available, if you are still patiently waiting in the wings, if she still retains a potent psychological control over your thoughts and feelings. And the weak man, The predictably weak man, in his desperation, eagerly snatches the bait. He sees the incoming message. His heart leaps with a frantic pulse, and he responds with instantaneous alacrity. He deludes himself into believing, "This is it. This is the moment she finally realizes she wants me back." But the very second she registers the swiftness of his reply, she gains a crucial, reaffirming insight. She never, in reality, lost him at all. She knows with absolute certainty that she can reclaim him at her merest whim. She understands without question that she was never, in the first place, in any genuine danger of losing him. And just as effortlessly and mysteriously as she initially receded, she vanishes once more. Because her actions were never truly motivated by a genuine missing of him, they were, fundamentally, about verifying that she still wielded power over him. But if you steadfastly refuse to react, if you leave her message conspicuously on read, if you resolutely refuse to take the bait, that is precisely when the true, unadulterated panic begins to manifest within her. Because now she is left with no answers. Now she possesses no insight into the machinations of your mind. Now she truly, viscerally feels the profound weight of her loss. So she tries again. She escalates the intensity of her probes. Perhaps she dispatches another message, this time slightly longer, imbued with a touch more emotional weight. Perhaps she resurrects a shared memory, something she intrinsically knows will resonate emotionally with you. Perhaps she crafts an indirect social media post, something meticulously designed to trigger a specific response from you. She might even escalate her tactics further. She begins engaging with other men, openly, purely to observe, if you will, at long last, react. She employs every conceivable stratagem to forcefully extract a reaction from you, because a reaction, in her mind, signifies that she still wields influence over you. A reaction confirms that she can still, at her discretion, pull you back into her orbit whenever she desires. But here, precisely, is where you secure your ultimate victory. You do not react. You do not reply. You steadfastly refuse to engage in her manipulative game, because you possess an acute, unwavering awareness of her machinations. You understand with crystal clarity that this is not about her genuine desire to mend fences. You understand that this is not about her truly valuing your intrinsic worth. You understand that this is fundamentally about her inflated pride, her fragile ego, her insatiable need for external validation. And that is a currency you will never, ever bestow upon her again. Because the very moment you unequivocally cease to function as her emotional safety net, the precise moment she genuinely experiences the profound loss of you, is the pivotal juncture where she is compelled to make a definitive decision. Does she actively fight for your return, or does she grudgingly accept that you are irrevocably gone? And here is the harsh, unvarnished truth. If she was never truly and deeply invested in you to begin with, she will, without a second thought, simply walk away and never return, because she was never, in reality, truly yours. She merely relished the comforting knowledge that she possessed the option of having you. But if she genuinely and profoundly regrets losing you, if she authentically realizes the magnitude of her mistake, if she finally comes to terms with the agonizing fact that she allowed a valuable, irreplaceable man to slip through her fingers, she will not resort to passive breadcrumbs. She will not dispatch a vague, non-committal text. She will not post indirect, cryptic hints on social media. She will unequivocally show up. She will articulate with crystal clarity the depth of her regret. She will tell you directly and without equivocation. She will fight with every fiber of her being for your attention in precisely the same arduous manner that you once fought for hers. And when that transformative moment finally arrives, you will possess the undeniable power. You will decide if she is worthy of being permitted back into your life. You will decide if she has genuinely earned a second chance. You will decide if you even desire her continued presence in your life anymore. Because by the time she reaches that critical juncture, by the time she is desperate enough to genuinely prove her worth to you, you will have, through your unwavering self-focus, already profoundly moved on. And that, my friends, is the most profound lesson of all. The very moment you cease your pursuit, the precise moment you withdraw your precious attention, the pivotal moment you adamantly refuse to abide by her manipulative rules, that is the moment you unequivocally become the man she was, subconsciously searching for all along. But by the time this profound realization dawns upon her, you will have already become a distant memory. That is the authentic embodiment of true power. That is the immutable definition of genuine self-respect. And that, unequivocally, is why she will never, ever forget you. Number 5. Mastering emotional detachment. Everything, without exception, undergoes a profound transformation the moment you master the art of emotional detachment. Everything, the instant you cease to actively seek external approval. The moment you abandon the futile pursuit of another's attention. The pivotal moment you cease attempting to convince her or anyone else of your inherent worth. You transcend into a state that the vast majority of people will never attain. A state of true, unadulterated freedom. Detachment, in its purest philosophical and psychological form, represents the apex of personal power. It is the crucial, defining differentiator between men who assertively dictate the terms of their own lives and those who spend their entire existence as reactive puppets, constantly responding to the fluctuating emotions and whims of others. It is the paramount skill that effectively segregates those who consistently achieve their aspirations from life and those who perpetually find themselves bewildered, endlessly questioning why nothing ever seems to materialize for them. It is the fundamental mindset shift that metamorphoses a man from someone who is passively controlled into an individual who actively controls every aspect of his own destiny. And if you fail to unequivocally master this profound skill, you will, without question, remain perpetually at the mercy of someone else's decisions, forever subservient to their emotional dictates. You will perpetually be that guy, tethered to his phone, anxiously awaiting her elusive response. You will perpetually be the man consumed by anxiety, agonizing over her sudden, inexplicable withdrawal. You will perpetually be the one tormented by the self-flagellating question, "What did I do wrong?" While she, utterly unbothered, continues to live her life with unbridled freedom. And she isn't overthinking, you are. She isn't obsessing, you are. She isn't suffering, you are. And why? Because you have been systematically conditioned to internalize the erroneous belief that the sole pathway to proving your worth is by somehow winning her back. But here is the brutal, unvarnished truth. You do not need to win her back. You do not need to persuade her to return. You do not need to prove anything to anyone. What you unequivocally need is to release her, because the very instant you consciously choose to let her go, you reclaim every single ounce of power that you had inadvertently relinquished. Women do not, by their fundamental nature, chase men who are emotionally weak. They do not pursue men who exude desperation. They do not gravitate towards men who are in a constant state of seeking their external validation. Instead, they are drawn to strength. They are captivated by certainty. They are powerfully attracted to the man who demonstrably does not need them. Because the moment you unequivocally cease to need her, you transform into a profound challenge. You become a rare, precious commodity in a world teeming with the emotionally dependent. You become the man she will eternally regret losing, not the man she felt perfectly comfortable walking away from, not the man who resorted to pleading for a second chance. Not the man who incessantly dispatched text messages, desperately hoping for a reply, but the man who, with quiet dignity, simply walked away and never, ever looked back. That is the man she will find herself consumed by thoughts of when she is alone in the quiet hours of the night. That is the man to whom she will, perhaps unfairly, compare every future suitor. That is the man about whom she will endlessly wonder, What if for the remainder of her life? But by the time this profound realization dawns upon her, you, in your evolved state, will have already irrevocably moved on. That, fundamentally, is the entire essence of emotional detachment. Not to engage in manipulative games, not to employ coercive tactics, but to unequivocally demonstrate to yourself, and by extension to the world, that you do not require her validation or anyone else's to feel entirely whole and complete within yourself. Because the vast majority of men navigate their lives in a perpetual quest for external approval. They yearn for someone to affirm that they are sufficient, that they are enough. They desire someone to confirm their intrinsic worth. They seek someone to tell them, explicitly, that they are valuable. But what profoundly transpires when you cease to relentlessly pursue external validation? What occurs when you genuinely stop needing someone else's pronouncement to confirm your inherent sufficiency? What happens when you gaze into the mirror and recognize, with profound clarity, that you already possess every single resource you require, residing powerfully within you? That, my friends, is the precise moment when your entire world undergoes a seismic shift. That is when people begin to perceive and respect you in an entirely new light. That is when you cease to be merely an option and decisively transform into a compelling choice. Because the man who doesn't need her validation is the man she wants the most. The man who isn't actively seeking attention is the man who invariably commands the most attention. The man who is in absolute control of his own emotions is the man who effortlessly controls every single room he walks into. And the most remarkable aspect, once you have truly mastered emotional detachment, its transformative power extends far beyond just her. It encompasses every single facet of your existence. Every relationship you forge, every friendship you cultivate, every business deal you negotiate, every interaction you will ever experience throughout your life. Because when people finally grasp the profound truth that they cannot emotionally sway you, that they cannot manipulate you, that they cannot draw you into their convoluted emotional games, they fundamentally begin to treat you with an entirely different, elevated level of respect. They start to perceive you as someone of undeniable value. They begin to recognize with a clarity that distinguishes you that you are profoundly different from every other person they have ever encountered. And they will fiercely resist the prospect of losing that. Because in today's increasingly fragile world, the majority of people are, regrettably, emotionally weak. The majority are perpetually chasing. The majority are desperate for any fleeting scrap of attention. The majority require someone else to validate their very existence. But not you, because you have meticulously mastered the art of emotional detachment, and that makes you unequivocally untouchable. This isn't merely about navigating the complexities of romantic relationships. This isn't solely about the intricacies of dating. This is, at its core, about power. The profound, liberating power to walk away from anything that no longer serves you. The formidable power to maintain absolute control over your own emotional landscape. The undeniable power to live your life on your own terms without passively waiting for anyone else's approval or validation. The vast majority of men will, sadly, never attain this level of self-mastery. They will remain perpetually ensnared in the relentless cycle of seeking external validation. They will forever be governed by the capricious tides of their own emotions. They will perpetually find themselves reacting to circumstances rather than proactively leading their own lives. But the very moment you consciously choose to detach, the pivotal moment you decisively opt to cease playing by her manipulative rules, the transformative moment you firmly decide that you do not require anyone's validation to feel inherently worthy, that is the precise instant you fully step into the man you were always destined to be, and the most beautiful, liberating aspect of all. By the time she finally comprehends the magnitude of what she lost, by the time she is consumed by regret for having walked away, by the time she is, at long last, truly prepared to chase you, You, my friend, won't even care anymore. That, precisely, is the true, unequivocal victory, because the authentic prize was never her fleeting attention. The real, invaluable prize was the powerful, self-possessed man you irrevocably became when you definitively ceased seeking it. If you are ready to embody the untouchable, if you are ready to seize absolute control of your life, if you are ready to become the man who never again needs validation from anyone, then hit that subscribe button right now. Your support for this channel empowers not just yourself, but millions of others to break free from the limiting mindsets that keep them weak and subservient. And before you leave, I want every single one of you to go down to the comments section and emphatically declare, "I am untouchable." Write it, type it, own it, because from this very moment forward, that is precisely who you are.